The townhome and condo market in Florida is experiencing some massive changes right now, to say the least. So for example, based on a brand new report, the number of properties under contract with a home buyer fell to nearly the lowest April levels since at least the year of 2016. What's absolutely wild about this is the fact that the number of new listings rose to the highest April levels since at least 2016. So despite a giant surge of new listings, pending home sales are actually decreasing greatly. This is causing inventory levels and the share of price reductions to increase greatly. So in today's video, I'm going to share all the latest news regarding the condo and townhome market in Florida, because of course, there's some very big changes right now that you guys should be aware of. And by the way, if you guys get any value out of today's video, then please hit the like button. Also consider subscribing as well. I post frequent housing market updates so you guys can be more informed. Today's video as well is based on a new report from the Florida Realtors Association. They look at changes over the past year, but I'm going to share numbers not only compared to 1 year ago and in months past, but also the numbers regarding sales, inventory levels, price reductions compared to pre-pandemic era. So looking at April 2019 compared to April 2024. Some massive changes based on this video here or this report. Let's first talk about closed home sales. Of course, this is a number of sales transactions which close during the month. So the most recent stats we have from the Florida Realtors is April 24. There was 10,228 closed sales for the month. That's an increase of 1.9% compared to April of 2023. So what we're seeing right now is sales increase. And this, by the way, is quite the improvement compared to March, when we saw a year-over-year decrease down by nearly 17%. And also a year ago, down by nearly 27%. So this gain of 1.9% is actually the first positive year-over-year change since November last year. However, though, it's been down year-over-year for 11 out of the past 13 months. The only months that we had gains is this April as well as November last year. I also looked at the report from 4 years ago, looking at April numbers. So April 2019, there was approximately 1,600 more compared to this April. Let's also talk about cash sales as a percentage of all closed home sales. These figures are, very much elevated compared to on a national level. On a national level, according to NAR, approximately 1/3 of all closed home sales is from a cash buyer. But in Florida, it has been above 48% for the past 13 months. This April, it's at 54.9% of all transactions are a cash buyer for condos and townhouses. And that's a 2% increase compared to 1 year ago, when we were at 53.8%. The Florida Realtors also provided this chart as well. So looking at going back to January of 2020, the share of cash sales has been above 40% every single month since then. And it actually peaked at very close to 60% during the spring months of 2022. Big picture here, to me, these increase of cash transactions make sense given the fact that mortgage rates started to increase greatly in 2022. So of course, back when average rates were around 3% in 2020 and 2021, it makes sense that we had fewer cash sales then compared to now, when average rates today are around 7%. Let's also talk about condos and townhouses regarding the median sale price this April. That was $335,000. This means that 50% of all sales for this April were above that figure and 50% were below that figure. At $335,000, that's an increase of 3.1%. So prices are still up compared to a year ago, but we're not experiencing these more significant rise in prices like we saw in November, December, for example, when prices increase in the range of 6.5% to 7.5%. On top of that, I actually looked at April 2019's median sold price. It was only $194,000. So prices have increased by a whopping 73% over the past 5 years. So if you're a home buyer looking to buy a condo or townhome in Florida, it's great to see that prices are only up by 3% year over year. But going back to 5 years ago, a giant increase of 73%. On top of that, we're seeing, home insurance rates increase, property taxes, maintenance fees, HOAs, etc., which is causing a lot of challenges regarding the condo market in Florida right now, to say the least. Now, speaking of that, condos on average in Florida this April sold for far less than the seller's asking price. That's at 94.7%, which means on average, houses or condos sold for 5.3 percentage points less than the seller's original list price. And that's down compared to April of 2023, when that share was at 96.2%. Now it's at 94.7%. To me, this metric is pointing to a softness of price growth in the near term because of houses on average selling for less than the seller's asking price. And like I mentioned at the very beginning of this video, supply is far outpacing demand right now. So I would not be surprised to see negative prices later this year, especially in the Florida condo market. Time will tell, and I'll definitely keep you posted. Here's another metric that is also pointing to some trouble ahead as well. So here is the median time to contract, or days in the market. That's at 43 days. So you list your condo for sale, approximately 43 days later, you get your offer accepted from a home buyer. But 1 year ago, it was at 29 days. So it has increased by 48.3% year over year. In other words, it's taking about 2 weeks longer to sell right now compared to 12 months ago. What's absolutely remarkable about this as well is that 1 year ago, we were up by 190%, but on top of that, we saw another increase of 48%. So looking at the spring months of 2022, of course, that was when our housing market was absolutely on fire. But April of 2022, days in the market, and also in March at 10 days. Now it's at 43 days. So houses taking about 4 times longer to sell compared to 2 years ago. One thing I did note though, when doing my research for today's video, is that days in the market in April of 2019, 5 years ago, was at 51 days. Now it's at 43 days. So houses on average are selling about 8 days faster this April compared to April 2019. Okay, let's now talk about new pending sales and also new listings and active listings. Some massive changes right now and a severe imbalance between demand and supply. So in regards to new pending sales, there was 10,568. We are seeing a seasonal increase, but actually decreased compared to the previous month, when at that time there was 10,838. So besides April of 2020, that was obviously when we had stay-at-home orders, the onset of COVID. Besides that month, this is the lowest amount of pending sales for the month of April since at least 2016. Like I mentioned, pendings are seasonal. We see a low amount of pendings during the winter months and a high number during the spring home buying season. And that, of course, is why I'm pointing out that the month of April, extremely low levels over the past several years, to say the least. One more thing I do want to point out regarding pending sales, it's down 4.3% year over year. Not as bad as the previous month, down by 13%, and also not as bad as April of 2023, down by 18%. But again, the lowest levels for the month of April since 2016 is quite remarkable, to say the least. So that is the demand side. Let's have a look at new listings. Massive changes here as well. So there was 15,934 new listings. These are properties being listed for sale. That's a giant increase of 24.2%. What I found to be interesting though is that the number of new listings has been trending downward for the past 3 months. However though, this is the highest amount of new listings for the month of April since at least 2016, as far back as their data goes, at least on their public website. So we're seeing new pending sales decreasing, whereas new listings are surging. If we had an environment in which home buying demand was absolutely skyrocketing, if new listings rose greatly, we would also see new pendings also increase as well. We're seeing exactly the opposite. That's one of the reasons why we're seeing the share price reductions and inventory absolutely spiking right now. Now, speaking of active listings or inventory levels, here's a look at this, a giant increase of 84.5% year over year. On top of the increase we had 1 year ago, up by 97%. So a giant increase 1 year ago, but on top of that, another big increase up by nearly 85% from April of 2023. So this April, there's just over 59,000 condos and townhouses for sale statewide. This is very high levels. It has been increasing every single month ever since last summer. On top of that, 59,000 is higher than any other April going back to at least the year of 2016. They provided this chart below going back to January of 2016. As you can see here, ever since April and September of last year, inventory has been increasing every single month. And we're well above the past several years, especially compared to the spring and also the early or late winter months of 2022, where at that time there was approximately, 17,000 properties for sale. Now there's a whopping 60,000 this April. And that equates to approximately a 247% increase in active listings compared to just 2 years ago. What's also wild as well is the month supply. Look at this, 6.9 months, giant increase of 97.1% on top of the 169% increase we saw from April of 2022 through April of 2023. 1 year ago, the month supply was only 3.5 months, a big increase, basically double that at 97.1%. Based on my research in today's video, this is a record high for any month since at least 2016. Absolutely crazy. On top of that, this is a giant increase compared to the lows of 2022 when the month supply was around 1 month. Now it's at nearly 7 months. So the month supply has nearly increased by 7 times compared to 2 years ago. Just to provide some context regarding how high this figure is at 6.9 months, look at this. This is January 2016 through April of 2020. So the month supply really peaked in early 2019 and also early of 2017 when the month supply was around 6.4 months. But in general, looking at April numbers, we had around, 6.1 months in April 2019 and 5.7 months in April of 2020. So 6.9 months is a very high level of inventory in Florida right now. Now, remember when I talked about how one of the reasons why home prices have been increasing in Florida is impacted by this right here. This is the mix in sales. This is not the only reason why prices are up by 3% year over year, but it is impacting it in my opinion. So look at this. Here is closed home sales by price range this April. Condos and townhouses that sold for over $1 million surged by 28.3% compared to April of 2023. On top of that, sales in the range of $600,000 to just under $1 million increased by 9.6%. Whereas home sales in the more affordable range, in the range of $100,000 to $300,000, decreased year over year. So we're seeing sales in the lower range of the market decreasing year over year, whereas more expensive properties selling much more so compared to a year ago, which is impacting the overall median sold price statewide, in my opinion. But on top of that, we're seeing a lack of contracts being signed. We're seeing inventory skyrocketing. We're seeing the share of price reductions also increasing as well, which is all pointing to decreases in home prices overall in the condo and townhome market in Florida. in the coming months. Now, before I share some metrics regarding the share price reductions and also some other metro analysis as well, I want to provide this as well. So even though there's some trouble ahead and there's a lot of challenges in the market, we still have a lack of foreclosures and distressed home sales. So in April this year, there was 10,171 traditional sales. These are excluding foreclosures and short sales. So REOs, which are real estate owned properties, and foreclosures, there was only 53 sales this April and only 4 short sales. So distressed home sales virtually non-existent in Florida this April. In regards to the share price reductions, here's what's happening according to altusresearch.com on a national level. So according to them, the share price drops is at 34%. Looking at Florida though, it's at 46%. So share price reductions much higher compared to the national average. This, by the way, is for the week ended May 17th this year at 46%. This, by the way, is very high levels for mid-May. Last year, this time, we were at basically 38%. 2 years ago, 25%. 2021, 17%. 2020, nearly 30%. And looking at pre-COVID levels back in May 31st, 2019, we were at 38%. Now we're at 46%. This, by the way, is actually getting very close to the peak back in the winter months of 2022, when it peaked at around 46%. And keep in mind, this is the spring home buying season, right? The share price drops tends to peak in the winter months. And here we are very close to levels we saw in the winter months of 2 years ago. And now we're only in mid-May. Let's also have a look at how each of the metro areas in Florida fared, because of course, there's some very big differences here. This again is looking at townhomes and condos according to the Florida Realtors. Again, for all my videos, I provide links in my video description below if you guys want to look at these reports. Anyways, I want to look at the markets that had at least 500 sales for the month of April, because small markets such as this one right here, only 11 sales. So when we have a low level of sales, the data can fluctuate greatly depending on the mix in sales each and every month. Anyways, looking at Cape Coral, Fort Myers, Florida, that market, there was 610 closed home sales. That's down by 0.5% from 1 year ago, yet home prices there decreased by 2.2%. This, by the way, is tied with the biggest year-over-year decrease with Northport and Sarasota, Florida metro area. Looking at these other metros, Jacksonville, decrease in sales down by 7.5%, whereas prices, again, the median sale price up by 3.9%. Miami is a, entirely different animal, increasing by 8.9%. Giant increases in prices over the past 4 years. I mean, huge gains. Sales only increased by 2% year over year. But what's interesting about Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach metro area, there was nearly 3,800 sales out of the 10,228 sales total for the month. So approximately 1/3 of all sales occur in the Miami marketplace. Moving on, let's talk about Naples and Northport, Sarasota markets. So in Naples, sales increased by 3.1, whereas in Northport, it actually increased by 10.6, but down 2.2% in prices. Whereas in Naples, a small gain of 0.8%. And lastly, let's have a look at Orlando, Florida. Sales there increased by 5.9, prices up by 3.1 year over year. Sorry, one more metro I want to mention is the Tampa or the greater Tampa area at 1,417 closed home sales. That's down 2.4% year over year, but an increase of 3.1% compared to April of 2023. So as you guys can see, every market's different. So hope you guys got a lot of value out of today's video. Of course, if you did, please hit the like button. I greatly appreciate that. Of course, I appreciate you. Hope you guys have an awesome day. I look forward to seeing you on the next video.